that we are going to turn New York City around, and we are going to turn it around very, very quickly. We're going to bring safety back to our streets. We're going to bring success back to our schools. We're going to bring prosperity back to every neighborhood and every borough of the greatest city in our land. We're going to reduce taxes. We're going to bring businesses and big taxpayers back to New York. Got to bring them back. And we're going to make New York bigger, better, and more beautiful than ever before. And that includes right here in the Bronx. And it's going to be done and funded starting on January 20th, directly from our great and beautiful White House. Is that okay? Thank you. I have come tonight to talk about solving problems. The simple fact is Joe Biden is not getting the job done for the Bronx. He's not getting the job done for New York, and he's not getting the job done for America. He is incompetent, ladies and gentlemen. He is grossly incompetent. I will get the job done as I did for 4 years, and I will get it done fast.
Welcome to High Cheese. It's Friday, May 24th, 2024. And for as much as Wildwood was a gut punch to the Democrats, this rally in the South Bronx that drew a reportedly 25,000 people, mostly Hispanics, mostly African Americans, this was a left hook to the jaw of the Democrats. And this is really sending the Democrats reeling. Now, here's one person I really feel sorry for. You notice that you haven't heard an official estimate of the crowd coming from law enforcement. Now, a permit for the area they were using was for 3,500 people, but there were massive amounts of people outside of the permitted area that came to listen to Donald Trump. But let me get back to who I feel sorry for. I feel sorry for the law enforcement official that has to tell the press what the estimated number is. Now, you notice you haven't heard it from anyone yet in New York City, law enforcement, because that would wreck his career in law enforcement. There's so much pressure on these patrolmen to keep the number down. No one wants to say anything. And if they say the truth, they're ruined. Because that's how the Democrats work. If they told the truth, they would never, ever be able to move up in the ranks in law enforcement in New York City. But to me, here's the importance of what this represented. And I'm going to play a couple more clips from this rally. Now, the one thing that is startling is just a vast number of African Americans and Hispanics that came out. Now, what you've done by this is you've taken away the Democrats' campaign fakery of telling everyone Donald Trump is a racist. He hates black people. He hates people of color. Well, you've just taken away that campaign lie. The people there were revved up. They were happy because they're desperate. The people of the South Bronx are the ones that are seeing the crime, that are having their jobs taken away by illegal migrants, that bear the brunt of inflation, and they've had enough. And Trump's message is a unifying message. Trump transcends Republicans. Trump transcends Democrats. He transcends the deep state. And that's why Washington, the rhinos, the Democrats, hate him. So let's go back to another clip.
And you wouldn't have had inflation. As soon as I get back into the Oval Office, I am going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call your mayor and your governor, and I'm going to say, this is President Trump, and I want to come back and help. Look, you have a Democrat governor, you have a Democrat mayor, and we are going to work with them, and we're going to get this state and this city at a level that it's never seen before, frankly. I think we can do that, too. We're going to be helping them a lot, much more than anybody would expect. It doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republicans, because this is about our city and our country, and it's really about the people. And in this case, the people of New York City, New York State. We're going to make you very, very happy. And Biden can't do it. He doesn't know he's alive. We had the greatest economy in history. Everybody here, where you have a small business or if you had a job, you were getting more than you ever made. And we had no inflation. We had no 1.4%, considered none, considered better than none, because frankly, none in its own way is a bad thing also. We had a perfect number, 1.4%. It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or whatever the hell color you are, it doesn't matter. We are all Americans, and we're going to pull together as Americans.
And what a unifying message this is. Well, let's put this into contrast with Joe Biden's recent speech at an historically black college, where he literally was telling African Americans that this country hates you. That's some unifying message. Remember Biden's dark MAGA speech? How MAGA people were a threat to democracy? That's some unifying message. Or how about what's being taught in our universities? All about the oppressor versus the oppressed. Oh, that's unifying. How about Kathy Hochul? Kathy Hochul came out a couple of weeks ago, said that kids in the inner cities don't even know what a computer is. Is that what she thinks of black people? Is that what she thinks of Hispanics in the inner city? They don't even know what a computer is? How's that unifying? And let's go on to the next clip. And what I find really ironic is that you've got Joe Biden out there telling African-American graduates that this country hates you. Meanwhile, it's Biden's policies that are killing the African-American community.
The positive number ever in our history for black Americans and Hispanic Americans. We lifted 6.6 million people out of poverty. Nothing like that has ever happened in our country. And the real middle class income rose over $6,000 a year. Think of that. Under Biden, it's a disaster. Real middle class income has fallen over $2,000 a year. That's a lot. That's a difference of $8,000. Real earnings for African Americans are down 5.6%. African Americans are getting slaughtered. Hispanic Americans are getting slaughtered. And these millions and millions of people that are coming into our country, the biggest impact and the biggest negative impact is against our black population and our Hispanic population, who are losing their jobs, losing their housing, losing everything they can lose. They're the ones that are affected most by what's happening. Not only the fact that you've lost the use of your schools, your parks, and your hospitals. Joe Biden's inflation. Do they have that? Do they have it?
And one thing that a lot of people didn't pick up on that I want to talk about is Trump defines what it is to be an American. And part of that is working. If you work hard in this country, you can have a good life. And that's not what is happening in the inner cities today. Hispanic Americans, African Americans, they want to work. But their jobs are being taken away by illegal migrants. Statistically, if you took a look at all these new jobs that are being created by Joe Biden, many of them are being filled by illegal migrants at the expense of Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, white Americans. And not only is this fundamental to this country, that the expectation is that we work and you will do well, it's also fundamental to Judeo-Christian values. So let's go to this clip.
The harder you work, the luckier you get. You know who said that? A great golfer named Gary Player. He was smaller than other golfers, but he worked harder than other golfers, and he ended up with the most career wins of any golfer. He ended up with 9 majors, and he was small in stature, but big right up here. But he made that say, it was the first time I ever heard about it. He said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. That was an athlete saying that. Amazing, right? Yeah, my father taught me about construction, but what I really learned from him was that he worked 7 days a week. On Sunday, he'd go to church in the morning, and then he'd go and work. And I know some people that don't believe in working on Sunday. You couldn't keep him away from work. But he loved working, and he was happy. He was married for a long time. That's one thing I'm not going to top him on. He was married. He was married for a long time, decades and decades. I said, Pop, I'm not going to beat you on that one. Never going to beat you. Very simply, Joe Biden puts illegal aliens first. I put America first. I put America first.
And it was funny to see the mainstream media's reaction to this. At first they were saying, well, this is just Donald Trump's MAGA sycophants following him into the South Bronx. And then they saw the faces in the crowd, Hispanics, African Americans. Whoops, wrong on that one. Well, let's try something else. The most absurd one was, it was a big crowd, and it was a surprisingly big crowd, but New York City is a big city. It's got millions and millions of people, but in the big picture, it wasn't such a big crowd. No, it was a big crowd. And they're dumbfounded by this. So we shall see. Now, I want to talk about Mar-a-Lago, and I want to talk about Merrick Garland, Joe Biden's attorney general, approving the use of lethal force during the Mar-a-Lago raid. And to be quite frank, this whole thing had a potential for disaster. And the question is, was it intentional or not? I've read the documentation, I've read the warrant, I've read the supporting documentation surrounding this raid, and it just stinks. You had a group of heavily armed FBI agents who stormed Mar-a-Lago. They were told to wear civilian clothes and no badges. Now, at the other end, you've got Donald Trump's private security detail, as well as the Secret Service. And when you look at this document, they had things planned out. They even planned out what they were going to do if they were confronted by Donald Trump, along with his Secret Service agents. Were they looking to create a blue-on-blue escalation? Were they looking for a shootout between the Secret Service and the FBI? Because the Secret Service is there to protect the president. That's what their responsibility is. And Merrick Garland and the FBI, they had different ideas. So it makes you think about what crazy things could have happened during this. What happens if they decided they were going to cuff Donald Trump? They didn't know at the time whether Donald Trump was there. Was the Secret Service going to allow them to cuff Donald Trump during the raid? What happens if the Secret Service came in and said, no, you're not getting near the president? This thing could have escalated terribly. How about Trump's private detail? He's got his own private security. Were they itching for a fight with them? And they're treating the former president of the United States over documents as some kind of drug kingpin that they were going to raid. You know, you had the Department of Justice come out and say, oh, this is standard protocol. We always include lethal force documentation as part of our warrant process. Standard policy for the FBI. And that's the point. This should not be standard policy because you're dealing with a former president of the United States with an armed security detail that surrounds him, both private and the Secret Service. And that's the problem. This was not a normal warrant. You're dealing with the former president of the United States over paperwork. Donald Trump's not a drug kingpin. Shouldn't be treated as a drug kingpin. And again, they're trying to make you believe this is standard process. It shouldn't have been standard process. And then someone reported, well, they did the same thing for the Joe Biden warrant. Oh, really? Let's see the paperwork. Let's see the plan for casualties like you had in the warrant for Donald Trump. I mean, there are just so many scenarios where this thing could have turned bad. And again, maybe that's what the DOJ wanted. And here's what really gets me, too, is The FBI photographers went in and took a number of pictures of Mar-a-Lago. And it just seems really, really strange to me that a plurality of the number of pictures that were taken from Mar-a-Lago were from Melania's bedroom. Why in the world would they need to take so many pictures of Melania's bedroom? Why would they need to go through Melania's panty drawers? You got to see the list of all the pictures that were taken from Melania's bedroom. I think there were twice as many pictures of taken from Melania's bedroom as there were from Donald's bedroom or his son Barron's bedroom. Now, what would happen if Barron's in his bedroom, he's got his earphones on, and some guy bashes through his door, and he takes a swing at the guy? Is he going to shoot Barron Trump? There were just so many scenarios where this thing could have gone bad. And because they failed to treat this as something other than just standard operating procedure, it was a case for disaster. But again, maybe that's what the DOJ wanted. Maybe it was a way just to humiliate Donald Trump because, look, somebody goes through my wife's drawers and I'd be ticked off too. But maybe they just wanted to humiliate Donald Trump. Yeah, we're going to suck your wife into this whole thing. We're going to go through her drawers. We're going to go through her panties. Maybe hurt Barron in the process. But there's absolutely no reason why they could not have modified this standard operating procedure for Mar-a-Lago. And quite frankly, I believe there was in the back of their certain people's mind at the Department of Justice, maybe Merrick Garland himself, they couldn't care less. Oh, somebody gets hurt, so what? Press will be all over. Oh, shoot at Mar-a-Lago. But this is absolutely irresponsible at the very least and evil at the very worst to have this use of lethal force against the former president of the United States. I mean, I don't have any more to say on this. It's either a dumb move by them or it was intentional to create havoc or worse. So we shall see. All right, let's go back to New York. Not the Bronx, but Manhattan, where Donald Trump's smear case is going on. And Bob Costello testified this week in Trump's smear case. And it's funny. This Judge Merchan is so corrupt. He's going to use every game that he can play to tip the scales in the prosecution's favor. Now, Bob Costello, a week before, testified before Congress and said that, and Costello's Cohen's former attorney, and he testified before Congress a week before and said that, look, Michael Cohen said he would do anything to stay out of jail. And the second thing he said is that he had nothing on Donald Trump. And Merchan and the prosecutors knew this going into Bob Costello's testimony. And quite frankly, Trump's attorney could not even get a question out for Bob Costello to answer without the prosecutor jumping up and saying objection and Merchan saying sustained. Because they knew that what Costello had to say was damaging. So essentially all Costello could get out is that Cohen had nothing on Donald Trump. That's essentially what he got out. Everything was objection and then sustained. Now here's what a shrill character this Merchan is. During all this, Costello was making a couple of comments during this whole process. Like at one point, the constant objection and sustaining by Merchan, Costello says under his breath, geez. And he rolled his eyes a couple other times. So Merchan clears the room. Everybody out, even the press, and the press was up in arms too. You can't do this. This is this is a public meeting. This is a public case. But he cleared them out. And he admonished Costello while he was sitting there. Don't you give me the side eye. Don't you say anything under your breath. And then he accused Costello, are you trying to stare me down? The judge is actually saying this to a witness. Are you trying to stare me down? Of course, Costello saying, no, I'm not trying to stare you down. But this is just exposing Marchand as just a tool of the Democratic Party in New York City. And it's shameful. And I've said this in the past. This is an extremely weak case. It would never have made it under normal circumstances. Such weak law behind this. But they want to get Donald Trump, and they'll pervert the law to do so. And they're hoping that the jury hates Donald Trump as much as they do. And that's why I think some kind of guilty verdict is going to come in. Now, quite frankly, at this point, I don't think it's going to matter. I think the people are behind Donald Trump. They see what's going on. So we shall see. The last thing I want to do today is read you an article from the New York Post. And the headline says, New Jersey gym owner who defied COVID shutdown cleared of all charges after years-long legal battle. A New Jersey gym owner who defied the Garden State's COVID-19 restrictions was cleared of more than 80 charges relating to a series of pandemic-era confrontations with police. Ian Smith and Frank Trombelli, co-owners of Atlas Gym in Belmore, racked up summonses after they kept their workout spot open in May 2020, despite Governor Phil Murphy's mandate to close non-essential businesses. At one point, cops even arrested some gym rats as they left the building. And the owners were hit with scores of summonses and eventually ordered to pay $165,000 in fines for violating public health emergency rules. Several of the charges, which included violating a governor's orders, operating without a mercantile license, creating a public nuisance, and disturbing the peace, could have landed the duo in jail for 6 months, according to their attorney, John McCann. But late last month, a municipal court judge in Winslow Township dropped the charges, following a nearly 4-year battle, McCann told NJ.com. This victory opens the battlefield again and gives us options to continue to push back and bring justice to the treasonous actions of Phil Murphy and his lackeys, Smith said. Neither local or state officials decided to appeal the ruling. Now, if you remember Phil Murphy, the governor of New Jersey, he came down with some really severe draconian rules for the people in New Jersey. And many thought it was unconstitutional. If you can remember, Murphy was interviewed, I think it was on Fox or CNBC. And they asked him, well, do you think some of these draconian rules that you are handing down are constitutional? And Murphy's response was, well, that's above my pay grade. Above my pay grade? You're the governor. You're supposed to follow the Constitution. You're supposed to follow the law. And this is why it's extremely important who you vote for. Now, remember those days with the shutdowns, with the schools being shut down, with life being disrupted. And we all find out that did not work. There's more downside to these decisions than any benefit that the public would have. So again, when these Democrats come out and say Donald Trump's a threat to democracy, they're just saying that about themselves. They're the threat to democracy. It's all about power for them. And they use this pandemic to try to control the people. And like I said, the truth always comes out. Eventually. And with that said, thank you very much for listening. You have a good week, and I will talk to you next Saturday.